Hi, everybody. It's me, Jackie Clayton, editor with Recruiting Daily, and I have with me the illustrious Jeremy Roberts. I'm excited to get started. Just so you know, y'all are all on mute. You can count to three and hear everybody scream, 1, 2, 3. And you notice we didn't hear anything. That is because you are on mute, but we do want to answer your questions. So you can put them down here in the question pane, and we'll get to those. You can also tweet it out with the hashtag RDaily, and we'll make sure and get those questions answered. But without further ado, we should just jump into it. Jeremy, so I know you. I know that we've known each other for a long time, but why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I started in recruiting, I guess it was like 2001 or 2, and then I spent a lot of time in the agency world, and then I went to corporate recruiting with Raytheon, and I got to do a CRM implementation and kind of started up a sourcing function there, and then went to Honeywell and managed a team of sourcers. I think there were like 25 on that team, and that was a really cool experience. And then I went to SourceCon, and I was the editor of SourceCon, which was also an amazing experience. I got to know a lot of really cool people who have all become, you're one of them I got to know when I was there. But all of my really close professional friends seem to have kind of come around that conference and that time. So it's been a great run. And then I left SourceCon, I guess, about a year and 3 months ago to join Hiring Solved. And so now kind of went agency, then retained, and RPO, and then corporate recruiting, and then I was on the events and I guess the publication side, and then now I'm with a tech company. So I've kind of been all the way around our industry at this point. So,
which is cool, and I'm glad you said that. You know, it's funny because a lot of people we hear when they're like, oh, quote unquote, thought leaders or influencers, like, don't realize that we've actually been in the business. We're not like making shit up. We actually have done the job. So I'm glad about that. Well, everybody, just so you know, like today's Recruiting Live really came out of a conversation that me and Jeremy had this week, and we're really trying to look at some of the things. We talk about AI, machine learning a lot, and just some of the new tools that are going out there. But I know that the main reason that people are here was based on some of the description and talking about artificial intelligence and how it's affecting kind of what's going on right now, and what's that mean for recruiting, like as the role of a recruiter. So what do you think, like, what kind of strikes you about that now that you've kind of looked into it? What do you think, what do people need to do?
So I guess with artificial intelligence and machine learning is kind of the buzzword of 2017. It's if you go to HR Tech or any of the big conferences, SourceCon, ERE, or whatever you go to, you're going to hear a lot about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Basically, I don't want to bore you, and I'm not a developer, so I'm not the best person to tell you what it is, but it's basically your software is learning from itself, and it's doing a lot of the work that we used to have to do as recruiters to get us in front of the right people at the right time. I think that should be the focus of AI and machine learning for sourcing, at least, is to make sure we're calling the right people at the right time with minimum manual work that we have to do. So that's what I think the expected outcome should be for us. But I think more than anything, everybody keeps hearing about AI and machine learning, and people think they have to understand what AI and machine learning is, as opposed to just really embracing it and trying to understand if it solves your problem. So that's the big question. Everybody tells you, well, we use this neural linguistic processing to do this, and it's like, well, who cares how it's done? Does it work? Right? When you buy a car, I mean, do you ask them how it works, or do you drive it and see what it feels like, right? See if you enjoy it. Right. So I think that's really what us as practitioners who are not developers and very technical, we shouldn't be trying to understand everything going on behind the scenes. We should try to understand the real life application and know if it's working or not.
Well, what do you think, like, if I'm a recruiter, right, and we started implementing tools that, well, let me ask another question. Do you think that with the technology that we're seeing now, it's taking a big role in the sourcing function or the recruiting function, or both? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it's everywhere, right? Everybody keeps talking about, and it's a brand new thing, but we're hearing from companies, we're evaluating our AI stack in human resources and want to see what you do so we know where you fit, right? So if you think about the recruiting process, right, we've got everything from candidate identification, whether that's through marketing or through outbound sourcing, all the way through managing the data we have, and then we've got, you know, placement and onboarding. And there's an artificial intelligence application being developed for every part of that. There are AI interfaces, which some people refer to as chatbots, who are basically talking to candidates, they're talking to recruiters, they're talking to hiring managers, right, in every step of the process. So I think we should be evaluating what we can do with AI all the way through each step.
Well, you know, and it's funny because
what was your original question? I started rambling.
Answer my question.
Okay.
No, but basically it was like, is it taking more of the? You kind of answered it. If we're taking more of the sourcing function, or we're seeing machine learning taking more of the actual recruiting function, and I think you balanced it out. I mean, like the bots are kind of looking into.
Yeah, we're addressing every part of the process, right? Where I think it's gonna, the 100-year study on artificial intelligence, Google that if you haven't looked at it, but they're talking about right now automation, which, you know, automation, machine learning, artificial intelligence is replacing tasks, not jobs, right? And so it's, if you think about the things that we do that are transactional, that's where it's easiest right now for artificial intelligence and machine learning to take over.
Well, and I think, you know, a lot of people are afraid of it, but we've been using it for years. I mean, for years. If you think about, it's not necessarily AI. Well, maybe so, but you know, when you call a phone number and they ask you, like, you can say these different things, and it'll route you through the process. I mean, we're just using computers to do that instead of telephony. So it's not like it's
all learning.
Brand spanking new.
Yeah. No, not at all. And I think it's interesting, and I think a lot of what's most interesting, right? We're hearing a lot of different stories, right? Everybody's telling us what their AI technology can do, and recruiters and sourcers are sitting in their seats listening to all of this, but really the recruiters and sourcers are stuck with whatever their organization has bought, right? So the message is being sent to the buyers, right? The directors and VPs of talent acquisition. The recruiters and sourcers are hearing it, but they're stuck using old systems and broke down tools. And so it's an interesting conversation, right? Everybody's got an opinion about it, but I don't know. It's and then what you see is all these individual practitioners piecing things together with small free tools, right? Trying to make the crap work with small, you know, free tools, while the enterprise is trying to figure out how to manage the entire AI or HR technology stack, right? So it's an interesting time.
All right, you said it twice now, and I want to jump into it because I never heard of it until last week. I'm embarrassed about that. I never heard of it, but you keep saying AI stack.
Yeah,
I mean, when we hear about like we use tech stack.
Yeah. We've heard it. I mean, multi-million-dollar company.
So what are you talking about?
Well, it's not. I didn't create this term. You know, we're developing AI interface and artificial intelligence. You know, sourcing tools based on artificial intelligence.
Did I freeze?
Learning. I don't know who froze, but I'm talking. Can you hear me?
I'm back.
Okay.
I can now.
So good deal. So we're developing, you know, sourcing tools using AI and machine learning, and so we're hearing, you know, people who are making buying decisions for really large organizations. We didn't create this term of AI stack. We just had 3 or 4 people over the last couple of weeks reach out and say, hey, we're evaluating our AI stack and want to make sure we understand what you do, right? So large organizations have created this term, and we've heard it from several people recently in the last few weeks who don't I don't know if they know each other or not, but there's no common thread, you know. But large enterprises are evaluating what they're referring to as their AI stack, which is exciting, you know, for us. But it's
Well, it's
fascinating.
kind of weird though. You know, like I just don't. So give me an example of an AI stack. I mean, are you talking about, okay, we're going to use this for the sourcing piece, then we're going to move it over to bots, then we're going to move it over to video interviewing, and then we're going to move it over to some type of workflow
Right.
automated to make sure people fill the paperwork?
So CEOs, you know, AI and machine learning is affecting every part of every organization at this point, right? So CEOs are now starting to talk about it. And so heads of talent acquisition and technology people within organizations are evaluating how machine learning and AI can accelerate the entire business, right? So now they want to know what it can do for human resources and recruiting in particular. So when they reach out to us and they're talking about their AI stack, right? They're hearing vendors all the time. Like, we manage kind of the middle part of we manage the data in the middle, right? So you've got a database, you want to refresh those contacts, you want to match your current data to your open jobs, right? So that's kind of where we're playing with AI and machine learning. And we've got an AI interface that'll help a recruiter search that data. We're developing things for candidates to understand the organization better and which jobs they should apply to, right? So a front-end chatbot for that. Then you've got others that are a chatbot to screen people on the front end. And then you've got, like you said, the video interviewing, machine learning and AI there, who they're, through reading people's facial expressions in interviews, right, are starting to make recommendations. So what organizations, they want to know every piece, you know, every product that can affect every part of that recruiting process, so they can evaluate what makes sense for them right now.
You know, it freaks me out a little bit. Only because, you know, I put it out on Twitter, and I hope I didn't offend anybody, but I said, you know, you really need to spend more time recruiting and less time finding a tool that will do it for you. You know, it's like, and the reason I say that is because, you know, it was a fundamental thing. Boolean was all brand new for us, and
Mm-hmm.
now, you know, people don't know Boolean. And so it kind of made me think, like, what do you think about, like, these Boolean builders that are coming out? Do you think those are something people should be looking at?
So that's a great question. So, like, the enterprise, I think the goal of the enterprise, right, once the enterprise has adopted this AI stack and everything is in place, you know, let's go out 5 years. So the databases are refreshed, and from one interface you can search your ATS, your CRM, and anything else you have. You can look at your internal candidate pool. You can create a requisition and immediately see the top 15 or 20 people you should call for that. And then you've got some sort of AI that engages with those. You know, once that is built, right, and then the recruiter is going to be working on really high-touch jobs. We're not there yet, right? So the recruiters are out there, and they're trying to search a bad ATS that requires Boolean and maybe not even understands Boolean well, right? The ATS itself, and then a CRM that doesn't even have like a good radius search feature or whatever else. So the recruiters are trying to fight with current technology, right? So the Boolean builders, I think, are solving a problem for people who are having to search websites that weren't built for us, right?
Right.
I think that in the future, right, what a progressive technology company, if you think about it, our CEO, I heard him say one time, recruiters use Boolean because software sucks, and software doesn't understand what we want. So we have to write 200-character Boolean strings to explicitly tell it exactly what we want. And then we've got to look through all the results, right? Good software will understand us and learn from us and give us what we want when we want it, right? So we're focused on building that. There are other companies right now who are focused on helping you build better Boolean so that you can use software that sucks. I think our focus has shifted to building software that doesn't suck, so maybe you don't have to create a 300-character Boolean string. Do you understand what I'm saying? So those Boolean builders are good right now, and they're solving an immediate problem. But
Right.
I don't think that building better Boolean strings is what we're going to be worried about in 5 years.
Well, now, you're reminding me of something because Matt Charney, who I work with, if you're there, I love you, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
But he's always saying that no one's using Boolean. You know, if you use it, none of the systems are using Boolean. And as you can imagine, that's about, you know how I feel about Boolean. So this is a constant point of friction for us. But are you basically saying the same thing? Like there's nobody needs to know Boolean, or what?
No, I think right now, all I can speak from, and I'm sorry, this isn't a product pitch. I can only speak from what I know right now. Okay, when I started at our company 18 months ago, I was responding to 7 or 8 requests a day to build Boolean strings to help people get data from our system. I've only had 1 request like that this week, where I used to have 7 or 8 every day. I was building Boolean strings because we were not recommending the right people at the right time yet. Do you know what I'm saying? Our systems have learned enough in 15 months that, like I said, our system and the AI has surpassed my Boolean skills as of right now in 80% of the situations. There are times I can improve upon what the system does because I'm an expert, but I'm an expert at it, right? So the fact that it's only better than me, I can only outdo it 20% of the time, means it's outdoing most recruiters most of the time. Does that make sense? So I think over time, all systems are gonna, Boolean isn't dead, you know, and I think everyone should learn Boolean because it teaches you to think. But I personally have been using it much less in our own tool because it has learned and it's developed. And I think everything's getting there. So focusing on finding more tools to build better Boolean, I don't think is, you know, as an individual recruiter, you're stuck with what you have.
Right.
You know, if you have access to one crappy ATS, then you've got to learn every way you can to slice and dice that database to get to the candidates you need. Same thing, I mean, if you're stuck using 5 different social networks and you need a Boolean builder to help you build search strings to grab that information, that's cool. But data is commoditized at this point. We're all going to have access to the same data in the future, and it's going to be about who's getting to the right person fastest. And doing a really long Boolean query and looking at 200 profiles, to me, doesn't seem to be the answer.
Well, and Debbie's here, Debbie Schumacher, and I appreciate you being here. She said, I have found that Boolean is still better at finding candidates. Monster's new search, gosh, it's been a while since I've looked at Monster. Monster's new search is worse for me than what I have found in their classic search, which is Boolean based. But I think that goes back to what you said, depending on what tool you use. If the tool isn't doing what you need, you rely back on that Boolean.
Yeah,
search.
well, I think most tools, like right now, it's funny, when I train people, I'm like, okay, this is what we call Smart Search. If you think you're better than Smart Search, do what Smart Search recommends, and then click Expert Search, and you can manipulate it if you need to, right? So most good tools, and that's what she's referring to. So she sounds like an expert, right?
Right.
But if you look around your office, what was her name?
Debbie Schumacher.
Debbie, if you look around your office, Debbie, you're probably one of the experts, right? The fact that you're on this Hangout today and that you do these extra things, you're probably better with Boolean than most of your peers, right? So Monster's new search improves results for 80% of their users, I'm sure. And then the experts like you want to go back to that classic where you can use Boolean, right? That will gradually change, right? I think experts like you, over time, it will get to where you go back to the classic search less often, right? And I'm not referring, I haven't even looked at what you're talking about with Monster. I have not looked inside a Monster product in 5 years. But that's what I see with our technology and with others, is that it's improving things for 80% of the users. The experts still want to be able to go back because you know your job's better, you know you can get very explicit with what you want, and so I agree with you, Debbie. We're saying the same thing. So, but I do think it will gradually it'll gradually keep catching up with you, and you'll revert back less often. as time goes on.
I appreciate that, and I know Debbie said, cool, thanks. So I appreciate you being here, Debbie, and I appreciate you answering the question. I will say we have 10 minutes, and we have questions kind of flooding in. And
Where are they? I'm trying to see these questions.
You can't see them. I can see them. Can you see them?
Oh, okay. No,
we'll work through it. If we don't get to it, I'll send you an email. He'll answer that. So feel free to load them up, and we'll get to those kind of in the order of that it makes sense. And you can also put them out on Twitter. We have people like looking at that with the hashtag #OurDaily, and we'll be able to answer those questions. So Lee Candiotti, and I appreciate you being here, said, so what are we going to be worried about in 5 years when it comes to recruiting automation? And I think this is important because it kind of goes back to the initial idea when I asked you to come on live was, what do recruiters need, like what skills do they need to beef up on based on the part that AI is going to play in the future?
Yeah, so in 5 years, if you're going to, there are people who are the technical expert, and there are people who are kind of the relationship expert and the closer and good at all the soft skills in recruiting. If you're the technical expert in your department, you're going to need to be more and more technical every year, up to the point that you may need to know some coding. You're going to need to know how to tie systems together, and you may need to know some JavaScript and things like that, right? So the technical expertise, and that's not me. I'm really good at using tools, but I don't have those developer skills that I think the really technical sourcer will have to have in 5 years. So what that leaves us is with the soft skills are what are most important. So if you think back, before all this technology came about, 2008, 2009, there's data everywhere, right? So now we need people who can manage the data, bring it all in, and make it usable for a recruiting team, right? So that's where the sourcing function came from, is trying to manage all this data. And so at this point, with artificial intelligence, if you're able to look at your entire database of 1.2 million candidates and upload a job, and it's going to tell you, based on learning and experience, who you should call immediately, right? So you're going to have 20 people to call who are the right people. Instead of making 120 dials and talking to 35 people, you're going to know the 20 right people to call. You would have been nurturing them. And when you call them, ideally you're getting them on the phone. And the person who's going to win is the person who can get them excited, get to know them, build a relationship, influence the hiring manager, influence the candidate, and eventually close the deal, right? So to me, those soft skills, the real hardcore recruiting that hasn't changed since 1980, those are the things that you need to make sure you're good at, because everything else, and we're not there yet. I'm not saying I don't think there, and I'll go out there and say, I don't think there will be fewer recruiters. There will be fewer recruiters pushing buttons and dispositioning applicants, right? If you're a recruiter and all you do is open up your requisition in your large company and look through 200 applicants and disposition, that you better learn to close, right? You better learn to motivate and inspire and negotiate deals, because there won't be fewer of us, but that transactional piece is going to, the need for people doing that is going to go away. So there are people who are called recruiters who won't have jobs because they can't move beyond pushing buttons, but technically speaking, I think we'll have as many recruiters then as we do now. We'll just be focused on what matters.
Well, and remember too, candidates, because they are benefiting from machine learning and artificial intelligence as well. So as these things build up, it's going to be imperative, because your candidate already thinks they know everything about your company because they Googled it, and they got the search and went to Glassdoor or whatever, and found out everything they need to know online. So you're going to really have to sell against some of those things to what the real culture is, right?
No, it's gonna just keep intensifying. So yeah, the transactional kind of button pushers, that they're not gonna be around as long. Real problem solvers and communicators and kind of the soft skills. There's if you look, the same thing's happening in healthcare, right? What do you spend right now? You get to spend a minute with your doctor when you go, maybe 3 maximum with your doctor when you go to the doctor. So imagine machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms are able to look at all your symptoms. So when the doctor shows up, instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with you. It's like, oh my gosh, it looks like you've got this going on. Tell me about that, right? And so their time is taken away from all the diagnostics, and now they're able to help you proactively heal and proactively not get sick and patient care, right? So there won't be fewer doctors. They'll just actually get to help us and hang out with us a little bit instead of walk in and out, you know? So I think the same thing in recruiting. It's just going to shift what we're able to do for people.
That was a great answer, Jim. That was great.
Thank you, thank you.
Dan Laux, not Lukes, that I called him for the first 6 months that I knew him. He's here. I appreciate you. And he said, what do you have to say to everyone who thinks that every recruiting and sourcing gig is going to be taken away by a pack of T1000?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, as we go through all of these things, we don't need to be nervous. We just need to make sure that we're prepared for it. And that, to me, is, if you're technical, get more and more technical, because you're going to have to piece together all this AI. You're going to have to work on the integrations. You're going to have to know if it's working and make recommendations if it's not. You know, so get more technical if you love the technical side. If you love the old school recruiting, the people side of our business, get even better. You know, one of the things I would say is, a lot of people who came into our business post 2005, 6, 7, you weren't trained how to recruit. They sent you to the conference for the big professional network you use, and they told you how to use their software. They didn't teach you to motivate, inspire, pre-close, close. You know what I'm saying? They didn't teach you how to prep a candidate for an interview, or prep a hiring manager to interview a client, right? Yeah, candidate. They taught you how to use their software. And so look at yourself. If you were one of those people who was taught to use tools in your recruiter training instead of all the parts of recruiting that have nothing to do with technology, then you need to go learn all those things, right? Some of them are intuitive, right? Some of them you may have picked up on, but you need to go and get really trained in the soft skills of recruiting.
Agreed. I agree.
So, but I don't think that other people are going to take our jobs. I do think that you know, it's obvious that fewer technical people are needed to sit and build lists of people for recruiters to call.
Well, you know, and here's something. Peter Cummings asked a question. Thanks for being here, but said, where is the connection between Boolean search and AI? Or is there? I mean, to me,
smart enough to answer that, I don't think. So I'm not a developer. I'm not, you know, Boolean search, right? I don't understand. Can you expand a little bit on that, Peter?
Well, I'll send it to you because we have like a minute, maybe. We
Yeah.
have 2 minutes. I'll get them. And you know,
I think Boolean is kind of like, if you've got a static database and you want to see everybody in that database who explicitly says that one thing, then Boolean is great, right? What good AI and machine learning is able to look at 500 million profiles and understand the meaning and the subtext under all those profiles and recommend people who may or may not say explicitly what you want them to say, but might be a fit. Do you know what I'm saying? And machine learning and AI is gonna learn from interacting with you what you like and what is passing through your workflow to make recommendations that are gonna pass through your workflow that maybe you, with your human eye, wouldn't notice, right? Boolean is incredibly fixed, right? It's like, I want this and only this, right? Machine learning is learning everything else that's going on around that. So it's much more dynamic, I guess. And I'm not a developer. I'm a user like you guys who interacts with the developers every day, but they're probably all cringing right now if they're listening.
No, they're not. I understand what you're saying. It makes sense. I mean, like, Boolean is the first part, and then the machine learning says when you put developer, all the synonyms, that knows what that is, you know, trying to get things more specific without having to write those 200,000 million long screens and getting kicked out from Google because they think you're like hacking or something.
Right.
Or maybe, I don't know, they don't do that anymore. So Harry Landau, thanks for being here. He asked, did you see AI stack in the interviewing process? Or the AI stack?
Ask that. Help me with that question, Jackie. I can't see what. Did I see AI stack in the interview process? Is that the question?
Yeah, like what part, like artificial intelligence tool, or what are you seeing, as far as those types of tools that are starting to play a bigger role in the interviewing process?
Yeah. So I mean, like there's the video interviewing technology that can read your facial expressions and all those things, right? And it's learning from people in that way, right? So that's the interview process. And then you've got just the initial apply process, understanding what a person wants and where they need to go in that organization and what bucket to put them into, right? So there's that. And then there's so there's that, and then there's just simple automation in the interview process, that isn't even machine learning. It's just intelligent, automation practices in terms.
Scheduling.
Yes, scheduling and asking filling out this form, and then it'll move you over here, right? And then so yeah, I think that the AI stack, I mean, we do some things at the initial front end of the apply process. Olivia is another great technology that's doing some cool things with AI on the front end I think they're really suitable for high volume, interacting. I want to work at this organization, and then there's the chatbot that communicates with you and asks you questions to understand where you'd fit best, and then puts you that direction. Kind of applies you to that department. So yeah, I'm talking. It's all the way from initial interview all the way to onboarding is where you could start to put this information.
Well, and you know what?
Let me tell you another cool use for AI in the interview process, right? So let's say a candidate is interviewing, right? And right now we've got to call back and give this horrible, we just went another direction and not tell them anything, right? There's nothing data driven there. You can't really say much legally. So imagine that you've got applicants in the workflow. You push certain people through to an interview, then you push the final round of interviews, then the placement, right? Imagine that the people who are on the back end of that can say you were removed from the process. The people who moved forward, and it's crunched all the resume data, had these similarities, these common skills. The person who placed had these skills, right? So imagine the candidate care, right? That's going back to them, right? How often do candidates get the vague, we went another direction, and you can't really say anything as a human because it's not data driven, right? And it's dangerous to talk talk because of the litigious nature we work in, right? But if a machine is crunching that data and providing that's a much safer way to have those, to give that feedback and actually help them. So, and then on the apply side, right? We looked at your profile. Now these are the jobs we match you to, and then they're like, well, I want that job. Well, this is what you're lacking for that job. Right? Imagine that kind of, right? So then instead of 400 applicants for every job, you're getting the right applicants on the right job, and so that'll improve your life, and it'll improve the candidates' lives as well, right? So all of those things are going on, where they're learning from candidates, learning from the data passing through the system, learning from the way the recruiters interact with the system. A good machine learning and AI product is going to learn from all interactions from every angle.
Well, I'll tell you, and I hope that wasn't me. And we're running a little bit over. We are going to record it if you have to go.
I'm good.
You can't have. Okay, so really quick though, Henry, I went to HireVue has a conference every year that they host that's called Digital Disruption, and there were two things that I found to be, disruptive, whatever, but. There were two things that I found to be particularly interesting. One of them, and I wrote an article about it, ping me if you want it, but it's a company called Shipt, and they are a product, they will go grocery shopping for you, and they come and bring it to your house, and they put it into your house, right? That's what they do. But they go from interview to start, they've done it before in 24 hours. Like in some cases, same day. Usually it's going to be like 3 days, but they've actually had it where they've done it the same day. And they use a HireVue, 3 different tools, one of them being HireVue, so that they don't get to the recruiters until all of that is done. So that's like they take the whole complete interview process. The questions are there, they're already built in, and the people that are a good fit that gets forwarded to the recruiters, and the ones that aren't don't. So that's kind of an example of taking it from the interview process. But something else that I saw that I found was interesting was there was a company, and they used HireVue in a different way, and it was called Introduce Yourself. So basically what you were able to do, they said, if you're interested in our company, introduce yourself. They went through this video interview process. They didn't apply for any job. They just said, hey, I like your company. And what happened was they were able to take the data from that and get those people placed. Like, find them, they didn't apply, and then they added them there. So it was crazy how some of these things are working and making the process faster. But in any case, it is 12:36.
Yep.
We
Thanks
could go
for
all
having me.
day. No, I appreciate you so much, and I do want to give you an opportunity to give a shout out. We are happy that Jeremy runs an event called HireConf. Will you tell everybody about that real quick?
Yeah, HireConf is a one-day talent acquisition conference, and we did it in New York in February, and now we're doing it in San Francisco in September. September 7th, it's one day. It only costs $299. The speaker list is insanely cool, so go to HireConf, HireConf.com, and check out the speaker list. Some of them you'll know, some of them you won't, but it's going to be amazing, and I have relatively quick sessions, so it's kind of like TED Talks from some of your favorite people. I've got, like, imagine, Johnny Campbell and Shally Steckrell and Irina Shamaeva, and giving them 20 minutes to talk and say what they think is most important to say in that time frame is so it's going to be pretty awesome. We're excited about it, but Recruiting Daily is a media partner, so we're thankful for that. But it's a one-day event, $299 in San Francisco. Great value, excellent content, very cool venue. It's at Broadway Studios, so check it out.
So, and I know it's really short, guys, and I'm going to bring them on sooner than later to talk more about that event, because it's pretty cool, and it's a little bit disruptive. We'll say that. We'll say
yeah,
that.
well, it'll be fun. So we talk about recruiting and sourcing technology, and then we also talk about the things I was talking about today. What are the soft skills you're going to need? So here's what we're adopting now. Here's what we can expect in the future, and this is what we need to do now and in the future to be prepared. So that's kind of what I think about when I put together an agenda.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. This is going to be recorded, and we'll send it out to you, but I appreciate you, Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Good to be
All right.
here.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
As I